He left me standing at the altar because of a single text message. One screenshot, ripped from its context, was enough to shatter the vows we had written, the future we had planned, and the love we had promised. For years, I carried the weight of his silence, never knowing the truth behind that moment. Stay with me, because 3 years later, I uncovered the full conversation. And when I sent it to him, I made sure he also received my wedding invitation. My name is Emily Carter, and I was 26 years old the day my wedding collapsed. It was a Saturday in late June, the kind of day brides dream about. Sunlight spilling through stained glass, lilies perfuming the air, and guests buzzing with excitement. I should have been floating. I should have been radiant. But instead, I remember the cold burn of confusion that spread through me as whispers rippled across the chapel. The music had already begun. My father was at my side, his hand steady against mine, ready to walk me down the aisle. My veil brushed my shoulders, and my heart was racing with something that felt like joy, until I saw him. Daniel, my fiancé, the man I thought would be my forever. He was standing at the altar, but not the way I had pictured him. His face was pale, his jaw tight. His phone was in his hand, glowing with the kind of light that doesn't belong in a sacred place. And when his eyes lifted to mine, they weren't soft and adoring. They were sharp, accusing. I froze halfway down the aisle. My father squeezed my hand as if urging me forward, but Daniel's voice cut through the murmurs. Stop! Gasps rippled through the crowd. My breath hitched. I waited for him to smile, to explain, to laugh it off his nerves. Instead, he turned his phone toward me. A screenshot. A message. I can't do this. I don't love him. I just wanted the wedding gifts. I'll leave him after the honeymoon. And it was signed with my name. My name. The room tilted. My chest squeezed. The murmurs turned into harsh whispers. Somewhere, a woman stifled a gasp. That's not me. I choked out, my voice breaking. Daniel, I never wrote that. But he didn't wait. He didn't listen. He shoved the phone into his pocket, turned his back to me, and walked straight out of the church. The sound of the door slamming shut echoed like a gunshot. I wanted to run after him, to scream, to demand he look at me. But my body wouldn't move. My legs locked in place, my throat closed up, and all I could do was watch as the man I loved left me humiliated in front of everyone we knew. My father slowly led me back up the aisle, away from the altar that had just betrayed me. The music stopped. The guests averted their eyes. My mother was sobbing quietly in the front pew. And in that moment, as the world collapsed around me, one question burned hotter than the shame, hotter than the heartbreak. Who sent that message? The hours after Daniel walked out are still a blur in my memory. Faces blurring into shadows, whispers cutting sharper than knives, the heat of shame rising up my neck until I couldn't breathe. I don't remember how I got home. I don't remember if I thanked the guests who trickled out, or if I even looked at them. All I know is that one moment I was a bride, and the next I was a scandal. The phone calls came first. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly wanted to check in. Their voices dripped with pity, with curiosity, with that edge of gossip disguised as concern. Then came the silence. Daniel didn't call. He didn't text. He didn't ask me to explain, didn't give me the chance to defend myself. One screenshot was enough to erase years of love, promises, and laughter. I tried reaching out in the beginning. 2 voicemails, 1 shaky text, 1 email, but there was nothing in return. Only silence. It wasn't just Daniel I lost. It was his family too. His mother, who once called me her second daughter, returned the wedding gift I had given her with a cold note. We trusted you. You betrayed us. His sisters unfriended me online within hours. His father never even looked me in the eye again. At night, I lay awake replaying that screenshot in my head. I didn't write those words. I knew it, but someone wanted Daniel to believe I did. Someone wanted to destroy me. The question was who? My first thought was an ex-boyfriend, someone bitter enough to ruin my happiness. Or maybe a jealous bridesmaid, though none of my friends seemed the type. But deep down, I kept circling back to Daniel's family. His mother, especially. She had smiled at me so sweetly during wedding planning. But behind her eyes there was always something sharp. She loved Daniel fiercely, possessively almost. Sometimes I caught her looking at me, as if I were stealing something that belonged to her. But could she really have? No. That was too cruel. Too calculated. The days turned into weeks. Invitations went unanswered. Jobs I applied to never called back. My reputation shrank to a single story. The bride who was dumped at the altar for being a liar. I became the punchline to a joke I never told. And yet, I kept breathing. I found work in a bookstore where no one recognized me. I learned how to make small talk with strangers without letting them see the ache inside me. I trained myself to smile when people asked if I was married. Life went on, even if mine felt like it had stopped. But then, 3 years later, on a night I will never forget, something changed. Scrolling through an old email account I rarely used, I found a folder I didn't recognize. Buried inside was a conversation thread. The full conversation. And in that instant, I knew everything I thought I had lost was about to be rewritten. My hands trembled as I clicked on the email folder. At first, I thought it was spam, old junk tucked away by some filter. But when I opened the first message, my blood went cold. It was my email, my account, and there, in black and white, was the very thread Daniel had shown me on our wedding day. Only this time, it wasn't a screenshot. It was the whole thing. I read slowly, my heart pounding against my ribs. The first few lines were mine, messages I had written months before the wedding to my best friend, Claire. We were joking about the stress of planning, the endless costs, the guest list wars. I had written something sarcastic about wanting to elope and forget all the gift registries. I remembered that joke. I remembered laughing about it with Claire over coffee. But in the screenshot Daniel had shown me, those words had been twisted, isolated, and cut apart to look like a confession. And then, as I scrolled down, I saw the edits. Words lifted out of context. Sentences pieced together. Entire replies deleted. It wasn't just manipulation, it was deliberate construction. Someone had taken my harmless words and weaponized them. At the very bottom of the thread, I noticed something I hadn't before. The forwarding address. It wasn't Daniel's. It was his mother's. I stared at the screen, my vision blurring. My breath came shallow, uneven, as if the walls around me were closing in. His mother had read the entire conversation. She had clipped and stitched my words until they formed a confession I had never made. And then, on the morning of my wedding, she had sent the doctored screenshot straight to her son. Daniel hadn't left me because of doubt. He hadn't left me because of me. He left me because his mother had put a knife in his hand and told him to cut me out. My chest tightened with a mix of fury and grief. For 3 years, I had carried the shame of a lie I never told. For 3 years, I had hated myself for not being enough. And all along, the truth had been sitting here, buried in an email account I had nearly forgotten. I slammed my laptop shut and pressed my fists to my eyes, willing myself not to break. I couldn't, not now. Because this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. I didn't know how, and I didn't know when, but I would make sure Daniel knew the truth. And I would make sure his mother knew what it felt like to lose everything she thought she controlled. My phone buzzed on the desk beside me. A notification. I glanced down and froze. Daniel's name. After 3 silent years, his number lit up my screen. I stared at my phone, the glow of his name stabbing through the dim light of my room. Daniel. 3 years of silence, and suddenly, him. My first instinct was to throw the phone across the room. To let it ring until it died. But my hand wouldn't move. My thumb hovered, trembling, over the screen. I wanted to hear his voice. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted answers. The call went to voicemail. Seconds later, a message appeared. Emily, I don't even know if this is still your number. But I need to talk to you. I read it once. Then again. My pulse thundered in my ears. Part of me wanted to laugh. 3 years too late. Another part wanted to ask him why he had never questioned the screenshot. Why he had believed the worst version of me without even giving me a chance. But stronger than all of that was something darker. Revenge. Because now I held the truth. And for the first time since that day at the altar, I wasn't powerless. I didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop and stared at the buried thread again. I read every word, every line, until the anger burned so hot in me it felt like fire under my skin. His mother's fingerprints were all over it. Every cut, every omission, every lie. And suddenly I knew. If Daniel wanted to talk, he would. Because in just a few weeks, he was going to learn the truth whether he liked it or not. I had already heard the whispers. Daniel was engaged. His new fiancée, a woman named Rachel, was planning a quiet ceremony in the same church where I had been abandoned. That was where I would break the silence. That was where I would send the truth. And when he saw what his mother had done, when he realized how she had destroyed us, he would also see the other envelope. The one with my name on it. The one inviting him to my wedding. Because I wasn't just going to survive this story. I was going to finish it. My lips curved into a smile I barely recognized as mine. For the first time in years, I wasn't the victim. I was the storyteller. And Daniel was about to hear the ending. I bought the envelopes first. Heavy, cream-colored, the kind that whispered importance before you even opened them. I ran my hand over their smooth surface, imagining Daniel's face when he tore one open. Inside, there would be two things. The first, the full email thread. No edits. No screenshots. Just the truth, undeniable and raw. The second, my own wedding invitation. Not to Daniel. Not to anyone he knew. But to a man who had stood quietly in the background of my life these past years, waiting for me to heal. Someone steady. Kind. Someone who had picked up the broken pieces of me and asked for nothing in return. Michael. I hadn't said yes right away. The idea of marrying again had once felt like stepping into fire. But as I pieced together the truth of what happened, I realized something. Daniel's mother had stolen my future once. She wouldn't get to do it again. This wedding wasn't about replacing Daniel. It was about reclaiming myself. The night I sealed the envelopes, I imagined Daniel's mother's hands shaking as she opened hers. I imagined her sharp, perfect smile faltering when she saw the proof of what she had done. Proof I could share with the entire family, with the entire world, if I chose. For once, she would know what it felt like to lose control. But still, doubt not at me. What if Daniel didn't believe it? What if, even faced with undeniable truth, he clung to his mother's lies? Would I be opening old wounds for nothing? Michael noticed the shadows in my face as I slipped the stack of invitations into the mailbox. You don't owe him anything, he said gently. Not even the truth. I know, I whispered. But I owe it to myself. Days passed. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. A voice, brittle and sharp, hissed into the receiver before I could speak. How dare you? It was her. Daniel's mother. My hand tightened around the phone. How dare I what? You think you can waltz back into his life after everything you did? Her words cracked, brittle with fury, but beneath it I heard something else. Fear. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Funny. I was about to say the same to you. There was silence on the other end. Heavy. Tense. And then she spat out words I would never forget. You have no idea what you've started. Daniel showed up at my door 2 nights after the invitations went out. I hadn't expected him. Not so soon. Not without warning. But when I opened the door, there he was, taller than I remembered, but somehow smaller too. His face looked tired, hollowed out by years I hadn't been part of. He held the envelope in his hand. Crumpled. Torn open. Tell me it's not true, he said, his voice raw. I stepped back, letting him into the room. My chest burned with 1,000 words, but I swallowed them. He had to speak first. He had to sit in it. I read it all, he whispered, pacing the floor like a man losing his balance. Every line. Every joke. Every message. You weren't planning to leave me. You weren't mocking me. You weren't, his voice cracked. My mother made it all up. The air between us throbbed with his disbelief. He pressed his hands to his temples, as though the truth itself was splitting him open. I stayed silent, because silence was its own kind of power. Finally, he looked at me. Really looked. Why didn't you fight for me? The question hit me like a slap. My throat closed, my vision blurring. But when I spoke, my voice was steel. I did. You just never listened. His mouth opened, then shut. The weight of it landed, heavy and merciless. He sank into the chair by the window, his head in his hands. She said she was protecting me, he whispered. She said you were only after, his voice broke again. God, Emily. I left you at the altar. I let her destroy you. The tears I'd held back for 3 years threatened to spill, but I refused to let them. Not in front of him. Not now. Your mother didn't just destroy me, I said quietly. She destroyed us. And you let her. Daniel's shoulders shook. For a moment, I thought he might break down completely. But then he lifted his head, his eyes blazing with something fierce. She won't get away with this. I wanted to laugh. To tell him she already had. But then his jaw tightened, and I saw it. The first flicker of a man finally severing the cord that had bound him to her for so long. She thinks she can control everything, he said. But I'll make her admit what she did. I tilted my head, watching him. Be careful, Daniel. People like her don't confess. They crumble. And when they do, they take everyone with them. His silence stretched long, thick with regret and resolve. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, I still love you. The church bells tolled in the distance, but this time they weren't for me. Rachel's wedding, Daniel's wedding, was supposed to be happening that morning. I pictured the guests, the flowers, the smiles hiding whispers. But I knew all of it had already unraveled. Because Daniel had called me at dawn, his voice jagged with betrayal, telling me the truth had detonated. He had confronted his mother. She had denied, screamed. But when the emails were laid bare in front of the family, her carefully woven lies began to fray. And when Daniel's father, quiet, stoic, long ignored, confirmed that he had seen her meddling with his laptop years ago, she broke. Not with an apology, not with regret, but with rage. "She was never good enough for you," she'd shrieked, her mask slipping in front of everyone. "I saved you." Those words spread faster than fire. Rachel walked out. Guests murmured. Daniel's mother, the woman who had always owned the room, was left standing in the wreckage of her own pride. And Daniel, he was broken too, but in a different way. When I saw him standing at the edge of my wedding reception later that evening, I almost didn't recognize him. His suit was wrinkled, his face pale. He looked like a man who had finally seen the truth, and wished he hadn't. The music around me was soft, golden. Michael's hand found mine as we moved between tables, laughter surrounding us. For the first time in years, I felt light. Whole. Not the girl abandoned at the altar, but the woman who had chosen her own ending. Daniel caught my eye from across the room. Our gaze locked, not with longing, but with understanding. He lifted his glass, a silent toast, then slipped away before I could blink. No words. No pleas. Just silence, heavy and final. I leaned into Michael's shoulder, breathing him in. He had waited for me, believed in me, rebuilt me without ever asking me to erase my scars. This was what love was supposed to feel like, not something stolen, twisted, or broken by someone else's hands. As the night deepened, I thought back to that girl in white 3 years ago, standing at the altar with her world collapsing. I wanted to reach back through time and tell her, stay alive. Stay strong. One day, you'll hold the pen to your own story again. And I had, because in the end, Daniel didn't leave me at the altar. His mother did. But I was the one who chose how the story ended. And this laughter, music, Michael's steady hand in mine, this was my ending. The ending I chose. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Thank you.